My marriage was a real mistake. In fact, it was the worst mistake of my life. The main problem was not my wife, she was normal in many ways. My problem was her mother, a real dragon who hated me more than anything in the world and never missed an opportunity to show her anger. Of course, I wasn't a real nice guy, far from it. But I wasn't a real bad guy either. Every person has good and bad sides. Nobody is perfect. I've never pretended to be a saint, and, to be honest, I've been involved in a few less than honest things, but I've never been to jail for anything. One day it was very close, but my friend Nicholas, who was in law school at the time, saved me. Nicholas and I have been friends since school. He was a small guy with thick glasses, and he always preferred to read books rather than join the rest of the boys who teased the girls. When a couple of boys at school chose him as a victim of their bullying, I felt sorry for him and told everyone that I would beat up anyone who dared to offend Nicholas. Two guys did it, and I kept my word. Today, when I start writing this story, I am 32 years old. I am a self-employed well driller, which means I drill holes about 100 meters deep for heating pipes, and I make good money from it. I have been married to Lisette for almost 6 years, and we have a son who was born just 5 months after our wedding. We have a nice house in a small Scandinavian town, and we could be your average family. But we are not like that because of her mother, the dragon, who hates me so much for getting her daughter pregnant while she had a boyfriend chosen by her mother. I must say that I have lost many battles, but I hope to win in the last round. This whole mess started on the eve of the summer solstice 6 years ago. The summer solstice is the shortest night of the year and has been celebrated as a sacred night here in Scandinavia since ancient times when the Vikings ruled the land. It's a romantic night with midnight sun in the north and just a few hours of soft twilight in the south. Wild parties everywhere. At that time, I was engaged to a beautiful girl named Lottie, and we planned to move in together on the 1st of August, when I was promised a 3-room apartment to replace the 2-room one I had at that time. But now Lottie and I had a fight because she was going to her cousin's wedding on Midsummer's Eve. I was not invited along with her, which was a serious breach of etiquette, because engaged couples are treated as equals to married ones and should always be invited together. I was sure that no other engaged couple were invited individually. Lottie also realized that this was a humiliation for me because of my old reputation as a bad boy. I have never done anything wrong to my girlfriend or her cousin, whom I have never even met. Lottie agreed that I was right, but she refused to choose me for this wonderful evening and did not want to stay at home instead of going to the wedding. If the wedding had been on any other weekend, I would have been happy to stay home, and even if I was invited, I would have done my best to find an excuse not to go. I didn't blame my cousin. It was her right to choose the guests and exclude people she didn't like. I blamed Lottie for accepting such a humiliating invitation on the summer solstice, the most important day of the year. We quarreled, and when she left my apartment in a huff on Midsummer's Eve morning, our engagement was called off. I told her that if her damn cousin is more important than her boyfriend, then let her stay there forever because I don't want her back. After an hour, I regretted losing her and called her several times throughout the day, but her phone was off. Lottie and I were also invited to a big party at a friend's cottage. I went there alone and had a good time as a new bachelor. At the party, I danced a few times with a rather nice girl, Lisette, who was there with her cowardly fiancé who had a hard time with alcohol. I didn't know her well at the time, but I found her quite attractive. When her boyfriend got too drunk, I offered to help her get him into the back seat of his car. Lisette and I returned to the party for some more time and then went for a romantic walk to a nearby lake. We went out onto a small pier and kissed. I think she was impressed by my old and incorrect reputation as a bad guy. There's usually no explanation why beautiful women are attracted to bad guys. Obviously, this has always been the case, because there is an old saying, "Naughty boys sleep with beautiful girls." Neither of us were very drunk, and she never accused me of using any tricks to get her into bed. She just fell in love with me and didn't mind when we went to the guest room she and her boyfriend had booked for the night. I was her first man. I didn't use protection, but I promised her to be very careful, and, of course, I did my best to make sure that was so. We then fell asleep and didn't wake up until the next morning when her boyfriend screamed like crazy when he found us naked in bed. Lysette's boyfriend threw his wedding ring at her, which obviously meant he was leaving her on the spot. When my now ex-girlfriend Lottie returned from her wedding, she called me and told me she regretted the whole trip, and I was right in saying that she was the only invitee without her significant other, which humiliated her and ruined the whole wedding. She tried to call me several times on Midsummer's Eve to ask me to forgive her, which I saw later when I checked my inbox on my mobile phone. She begged me to meet her and talk about our situation, to which I agreed. But when she called me again an hour after she found out about my sex with Lysette, she was completely beside herself and screamed that she was glad that our engagement was history. It didn't bother me at first, but I called her several times after about 2 weeks when I expected her to calm down. In response, each time I received the same answer and an offer to go to hell. I also called Lysette several times, but she refused to meet with me, and I had almost forgotten about her when she rang my doorbell 2 months later. She had a worried look on her face and wanted to talk to me. I asked her to come in. She got straight to the point, "I'm pregnant and you're the father." Then she began to cry. We talked for several hours, and she told me that I was the first and only man she had ever had sex with. She intended to keep the child and asked me if I was man enough to share the consequences of what we had done. What could I say? Even I realized that it is best for the child if he has both parents, and agreed to give our relationship a chance. Lysette was a beautiful, sweet, and calm girl with a reputation as a family girl. She wasn't as sweet as Lottie, but she was still a good choice for a wife. We decided to get married as soon as possible. Of course, love is an important part of marriage, and neither of us could deny that there was some love between us on that sacred night. We both believed that this feeling would reignite between us when we had a child. Lysette spent the night with me. She told me she was very happy. I made a decision and intended to make the best of it. The next day, we went to her parents together to tell them the news. This was both the first and last time I visited her parents' house. Her mother turned my visit into a real fuss. Instead of trying to take advantage of the situation, she started yelling at me, calling me a bully who dishonored her innocent daughter. She threatened to sue me and promised to punish me in every possible way. Her father was apparently a poor weakling who let the dragon spit out his fire without saying a word about it. Not the best in-laws in town. Her parents were the second generation of owners of the family printing business, and her mother was a feared boss. Their business was once the leading printing establishment in the entire region, but has now declined. The European Union, which at the time included 15 countries, as an internal market meant stiff competition with a large amount of new printing capacity available at low prices to the most important customers. And new countries such as Poland and Hungary, with good printing capabilities, were close to EU membership and therefore were already doing business successfully with the old members. Lysette's family made good profits in the good old days, but did not invest much in the latest equipment and lost customers, causing their income to be low. I was unemployed at the time, and Lysette's mother, seeing a chance to take control of me, demanded that I start working in a printing shop for lousy pay. I refused and chose to live on unemployment insurance, which gave me more money than it offered. Since I had unlimited free time, I even worked as a well-paying side hustle as a driller. Lysette's mother began our vendetta by complaining to the unemployment fund that I had refused to accept a job offer, which was against the rules. She had nothing for this. She then asked the lawyer to draw up a prenuptial agreement in which I had no rights to anything if things went badly between me and Lysette, which is exactly what her mother wanted. I asked Nicholas to rewrite it to be more honest, and Lysette signed it without telling her mother. 2 months later, Lysette and I got married in the town hall. It was a simple ceremony with only 2 witnesses. Nicholas and Lysette's best friend. 5 months later, we had a wonderful boy. Our relationship gradually developed into something that could be called true love, and the next 2.5 years were the happiest, even very happy, of our marriage. A few months after our wedding, I had the opportunity to buy a rock drilling business on fair terms. The owner signed up for a beginner's square dance course and met a wonderful woman there. She was a doctor and only had a temporary job at a local hospital, and when she was offered a very well-paid job in northern Norway, she made an offer to a driller who accepted and sold him his business. Since both the doctor and the driller signed a personal guarantee for me, I had no problem getting the bank to lend me the money I needed. Then, when our boy turned 2.5 years old and we sent him to kindergarten, problems began to appear. Lysette began working at the printing shop again, and as she was expected to become the next owner and boss, her nasty mother's influence grew. In good times, Lysette's greedy mother bought large amounts of stock and trusted her broker because her stock rose during a time when almost everything was rising in price. But then, when times get tough, her broker did a lousy job, causing her to suffer big losses before she could stop it. At the same time, I received some inside information from Nicholas, who was now a lawyer, about a sudden big boom in the company, bought shares, and made a big profit on the opportunity. I couldn't resist the temptation to punish Lysette's mother, so I boasted to Lysette that thanks to the new computer analysis program, I had made a really big profit, and there was more to come. I told her to go to our garage, and there was a surprise waiting for her there too. It was a nearly new Toyota Yaris that I had bought at a bargain price so that Lysette could use it as a trading car. Of course, she told her mother, who was jealous of me, and told Lysette to find out about my next purchase. I asked Nicholas to find some real stocks and put together a very complex, seemingly nonsensical program in Excel that showed a very good expected return for Mega X stock. I'm sure Lysette looked into my laptop and told her mother, who then made a big investment right before the stocks started dropping like a rock. One evening, Lysette asked me, "Did you lose money on Mega X stock?" "No, I bought some when they were low and sold all when they were high. Good for us. Why do you ask?" "I heard rumors that some people lost a lot of money on them. Playing on the stock market always involves risk." I won an important battle against her mother, but she suspected that my bad advice was given on purpose, and so there were rumors in the city that she intended to intensify her activities to cause trouble for me. There's nothing to worry about because she did her best all along. She made a bet with her friends that she was going to convince her daughter to cheat on me, divorce me, and strip me of my property before our boy started school. Therefore, she always invited the single young sons of business friends and acquaintances to her parties, hoping that one of them would seduce Lysette. Many of them were well-educated, polite, and some of them were even experienced conquerors. Of course, sooner or later one of them would end up in her panties. She had a boyfriend when I met her, so why would she be different now? Especially after being brainwashed for a long time by her mother to get rid of me. Her mother probably still thought that Lysette would have most of my property to invest in the printing plant when I abandoned her after receiving more humiliation than I could bear. Hatred, revenge, and money were strong reasons for her mother's dirty play against me. I told Lysette that I knew about the bet, and if her mother found a guy to take her to bed, she would be kicked out immediately. Lysette got angry and screamed, "What the hell do you think of me? Don't you think I know about this damn bet? And I'll be mad as hell if anyone tries to do anything." Good decision. Leave him, and we will have no reason to talk further on this topic. When Lysette started working full-time, our family life began to slowly descend to a new level. I wanted us to have another child, but Lysette refused. Our sex life, which had been good and sometimes very good while she stayed at home with the baby, had become a routine. At first, I didn't complain much because Lysette worked hard to help the printing business survive, which her mother, with her old manners, could have prevented from losing customers. My business was doing so well that I asked Lysette to work for me instead of her mother, but she refused. With the rise in oil prices, a thermal heating system became a very good investment, which meant very good business for me. Although I had a lot to do, I tried to help Lysette at home as much as possible. Our marriage wasn't great, but it was still at an acceptable level for years after she returned to work. We still had good moments from time to time. I really tried my best to convince her to quit her now very poorly paid job and free herself from her mother's bad influence. But things went in the opposite direction. Lysette began to take the baby with her and spent more weekends at her parents' dacha than at home. After a while, I got tired of it, and we had our first real fight. She realized that her mother was putting too much pressure on her and agreed to spend more time at home. But it was an empty, soon forgotten promise. Just 3 months after our big fight, she was back to her bad habit, which also meant that our social life with friends was reduced to a minimum. Of course, I was no more stupid, and I realized that her mother had now, after several years of fruitless attempts, finally succeeded in causing us to distance ourselves from each other. Our son told me about some Tommy kissing mommy thing when they got home from last weekend at her mother's house. It wasn't a surprise. These things were bound to happen sooner or later, and now I knew for sure that shit had hit the fan. I realized that our marriage was close to becoming history, despite my best efforts to be a good husband. Of course, I was saddened by my failure, but to my great surprise, a feeling of great relief began to grow stronger. I could look forward to a future without a nasty mother-in-law who tried her best to ruin my life. In recent years, Lysette, to my growing disappointment, had always preferred to side with her mother, so I did not care whether she also chose her mother in her final decision. However, I felt it was my duty to give her one last, fair chance to be a good wife again and save the marriage, if that was what she was interested in. She got her chance next Friday. In the evening, Lysette, as usual, told me that she was sorry, but she had to go to her mother on Saturday morning and would return sometime on Sunday, which probably meant in the evening. I decided it was time for her to make her final choice. Honestly, I didn't care what she was doing anymore, but I felt sorry for our son, and I decided to suggest that she change her weekend plans and save our marriage. So I replied, "Please don't leave. You were there last weekend. Why don't you stay home so our family can do something together? We can invite our friends over and have a barbecue. It's been a while since we've done that." She answered in surprise, "I promised my mother to be there and help her with the invited friends." Her invited friends. Why are they more important to you than our own friends? Or do you have one special man in mind? Who's that damn Tommy who seems to be spending the weekend with you? Will he be there? She had a surprised and scared look in her eyes for a second when I mentioned Tommy. She then replied, "He's an old friend of our family who helps Mum, and sometimes me, with some EU rules. He's not my friend, so I don't know if Mum invited him." "How old is he?" "I think he's 30. And he's probably a handsome bachelor, I guess." "No, he's married, but his wife left for 3 months to work for the administration in Kosovo. That's why he's free to help his mom on weekends." Her explanation about helping with complex European Union rules sounded reasonable, but why would a man his age want to spend his weekends with such a greedy old woman? "And what's your relationship like with this Tommy guy? You seem to prefer spending your weekends with him rather than your husband." I noticed the momentary fear in her eyes again before she answered. "Strictly business, of course. What the hell do you think of me?" "I don't know anymore. You cheated on your boyfriend when we met. Who's to say you don't cheat again?" "Don't insult me. This was different. I was young and fell in love with you, and you should know that I still love you." "You say that, but let's be clear about where we stand today. Lately, you've been demonstrating very strangely what you call love. It's nothing to brag about, really. Our marriage is a parody of a real marriage, our so-called sex life practically non-existent. You choose to leave your husband and spend the weekend with Tommy, who is clearly suffering from a lack of sex, while his wife is away. Neither I nor anyone else with any common sense will believe that. It is your hateful old mother who craves his sex. But you, Lysette, are a very attractive young woman, and one cannot be entirely wrong in assuming that sex with you is his first, probably only, reason for staying in your damned country house. Les, you keep saying that you love me, but I don't understand how you can think that I will believe such nonsense after what you do to me. I'm completely tired of your damn mother and her dirty tricks with our family, and I am ready to offer you fair terms for a divorce, so that you are free to do what you want with your dear Tommy. She wasn't expecting the divorce proposal, and her face turned ashen gray as she screamed, "Divorce? Are you serious? You can't ask for a divorce just because I want to see my mother. Are you crazy? This is not a reason for divorce." "No, that's not a reason, but I don't see any good reason for you to see her from morning to evening, 7 days a week, every week. If your own family still means something to you, please give up Tommy and stay home this weekend so we can talk about our problems and try to find a solution before it's too late. Please do this if you still love me like you say you do." "Of course I love you, but I promised my mother that I would come, and I have to do it. I'm sorry I can't stay with you, but please be patient with me, and I promise you will be well rewarded. Did you forget that next Friday is the summer solstice and we'll be together all day, and we'll spend a whole week together 24 hours a day in the summer house in July. What a gracious offer. At the end of next month, I will have a whole week with my dear, beloved wife. What a gift from heaven. And may I assume that your concessions to me on the summer solstice are due to such circumstances as Tommy's absence during the holidays? Maybe he's going to spend time with his wife during the holidays and won't have time for you. Or do you still remember that I left Lottie because she left me on the summer solstice?" Now she began to cry. "You are funny. You are pathetic. Do you think it's funny being married to you? I have to say, you have a strange way of showing your love. Well, Lysette, I know I can't stop you from seeing this woman hunter because he's more important to you than your family. But you should take the child with you because I'm going to be working on drilling equipment tomorrow and won't be able to look after him at the same time." Now she got really angry and screamed, "You accuse me of cheating. You treat me like a woman of easy virtue. Mother is right. You are a real bastard." Then she started crying loudly. I put an end to this and realized that something was happening between her and this Tommy, but I didn't care anymore. There's probably nothing left of our marriage. However, I made one last attempt to save him. The only reason I hadn't left her yet and told her to stay out of our house forever was because I wanted to get a better divorce deal if I caught her cheating. I saw no more point in arguing with Lysette and felt that it would be good for me to leave the house for an hour or two. I needed a big whiskey, and since I don't like drinking alone, I went to my favorite pub, which turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life. After a drink at the bar, I noticed that Mona, a friend of my ex-girlfriend Lottie, was sitting in the corner with her husband. I went up to them and asked her how Lottie was living now. She replied, "You didn't know? She's back in town. She divorced Sven and bought a small house here and moved in about 2 weeks ago. She was asking about you. Why don't you call her and talk to her directly instead of through me?" Mona gave me Lottie's phone number, and I decided to call her right away. Of course, she could have asked me to go somewhere far away and leave her alone. But I thought, those who don't take risks don't drink champagne. So I called her, and she answered. "Lottie. Hi, I'm Michael, old ex-boyfriend, if you remember me. Mona told me you were back in town, and I just wanted to say welcome back. Now the critical moment has come. How will she react to my call?" Much to my delight, she seemed glad to hear from me, and we had a long and pleasant conversation. She even accepted my invitation to lunch on Saturday. Afterwards, I was in a good mood and spent the rest of the evening with Mona and her husband. To my great relief, Lysette pretended to be asleep when I returned home, and I was asleep when she went to her mother's on Saturday morning. I spent the morning servicing my drilling equipment, and at 1 p.m. I was standing waiting for Lottie outside the restaurant I had suggested for our lunch. I can't deny that I felt almost the same feelings I did on our first date almost 8 years ago. When I waited 15 minutes and Lottie still didn't come, I began to doubt whether she would even come. But then she came. She was still a very attractive woman, and now even more feminine than when I saw her several years ago. She hugged me, and I immediately had a strong desire for her. She noticed this and was almost afraid, but calmed down when I made no further attempts to be more than just a friend. We had a very pleasant lunch and decided to take a walk in the nearby park afterwards. While walking, she suddenly asked me, "What is your real reason for wanting to see me again?" "Faith, hope, and love," I answered. She looked embarrassed before asking, "Can I tell you something I've been wanting to say for years?" I said, "Of course, speak up." She admitted, "I made 3 big mistakes in my life. Going to that damn wedding was my first big mistake. You were right, I was humiliated when the owners tried to set me up with the groom's brother. When the groom asked me if I had feelings for his brother, I got angry, told him to go to hell with his brother, and left the party. I did not invite them to the wedding with Sven, which made them very angry. I thought that you would forgive me and take me back when I returned home. But then Lysette's boyfriend called and said that you took away from Lysette what she wanted to save until the wedding night. I still loved you and was so angry that I refused to talk to you when you called me. I only contacted Sven. To punish you, I was going to leave him and return to you. But then Lysette became pregnant, and everything was confused. I admired the way you took care of her, but I cried many nights because of my stupidity in losing you. Then I married you, Sven, which was my 3rd big mistake. If I hadn't been so stupid, we could have been married instead." I replied, "I, too, made a serious mistake by seducing Lysette on the summer solstice. Of course, you and I broke up, so I was free to do whatever I wanted, but I should have used my common sense and tried to win you back before moving on. Believe me, I regretted it many times. But it's never too late to try again, or is it so?" She was completely surprised. "What did you say?" "Lysette and I have serious problems, serious ones in fact. I know she's cheating on me, but I don't have proof yet. Last night, before I went to the pub and met Mona, I asked her to stay home this weekend, instead of going to my mother and her lover, but she chose to leave. I decided that it was over between us. I was going to divorce her as soon as I got the necessary evidence, or if I couldn't get it, I would file. Divorce in any case within a month." "Oh God, I thought you were happy together." "We were very happy. You know the old saying, if you can't be with the girl you love, love the one who makes you happy. It worked well for us. Over time, I grew very fond of her. Real genuine love, but it's over now. What about you? Are you dating anyone?" She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Yes, I met an attractive man online, but we haven't met in real life yet. Our first lunch date is tomorrow. So I'm late for the date. However, I would like to apply to be some kind of substitute for this lucky guy, just in case he doesn't turn out to be your dream prince. What do you say to that?" She continued to look me in the eye and was silent for a few seconds before she replied, "No, I don't think it's a good decision to have you as some kind of substitute, not at all." Then, noticing the great disappointment in my eyes, she continued, "You are my first choice, and if you are serious and promise to be honest with me, I will not need any substitutes and I will cancel my date. It's my lucky day today. Remember, I never cheated on you when we were engaged. You left me and I was single when I met Lysette. I won't cheat on her until our divorce. But you and I have children almost the same age, and we can start as friends. That is if you want. I have rented a nice summer house on the coast for the 3rd week of July, and I promise that Lysette and I will be separated by then." Lottie invited me to dinner at her house, and we began planning the next weeks. Jennifer and I were already friends, and she had no bad feelings about her mother having a friend. I spent the night in Lottie's guest room, and we took a trip to the coast on Sunday. Lysette returned home late on Sunday evening, and we spoke little before going to bed. The next week also passed silently between us. Apparently, she was in a very bad mood after I proposed the divorce. Neither of us made any attempts to have sex. The following Friday was the summer solstice. Lottie and Jennifer spent it with Lottie's parents. Lisette and I were invited to spend the evening at a neighbor's house, where several families with children of different ages had gathered. We spent most of the day playing with the children. Then in the evening, the adults played some fun games and danced, but I hardly spoke to Lisette or danced a single dance with her. Usually she pretended to be a good, loving wife when we were in public, but this time neither she nor I cared about everyone seeing the cold feelings between us. On the summer solstice, she went to see her mother, but did not stay the night, perhaps because Tommy was not there. Lottie invited me to her parents' house, and I spent several hours there. They wished Lottie and I luck in our new relationship. The week after the summer solstice came and went with cold feelings between Lisette and me. We were polite and civil to each other, but neither of us showed the slightest trace of love. Of course, sex was not even a question. Lisette was expecting it from Tommy, and I was looking forward to getting everything I wanted from Lottie. The following weekend, Lisette and our son went with her parents to 3 days a bus trip to Legoland, a famous amusement park for children, and then she was going on her annual 2-day visit to her cousin. I was delighted to get 4 nights at Lottie's house. Of course, we both wanted to have sex, but in case Lisette intended to fight for a divorce, it would be an advantage to remain on the right side, so we agreed to wait. Lottie, her daughter, and I had a nice time together while Lisette was away. Lottie and I found that we still really enjoyed each other's company. True love indeed. Lisette and I were usually very busy with our jobs in the summer, so we decided to have only 2 weeks of vacation each, and only one, the last of them, together in a rented summer house on the coast. Instead of the usual summer vacation, we planned a trip to Thailand for 2 weeks in November. These plans had been made before Tommy came into her life, but under current circumstances I had no further intentions of going anywhere with Lisette. Instead, I promised Lottie that I would separate from Lisette before that week, and she agreed to spend it with me in the summer house, and I was going to keep my promise. I think Lisette finally realized that the problems in our marriage were much more serious than she realized and began to try to pretend to be a good wife again. Much to my surprise, she called me all 4 evenings while she was away and told me how much she missed me. She never called me before during all those weekends she spent with her parents. Every time she called, I wanted to talk to our son. During their second day at Legoland, I asked him a few short, simple questions, all of which he answered yes to. One of these questions was, "Is Tommy with you?" And the answer was yes. I don't think any adults noticed. My guess as to the reason for her calls was that she had remorse for taking Tommy with her, and when they got home, I got further evidence from my boy when they made a one-night stop at home between 2 trips. He asked me if it was true that evil wolves could enter our house and eat him. I asked him, "Who told you such an evil lie?" "Grandmother." "Why did Grandma tell you such a vicious lie? What did you do to her?" "Nothing yet. But we have a secret, and if I tell you about it, the wolves will come and eat me." I tried a trick and told him, "What's the secret? It's not a real secret that Tommy was with you and Mom. Your mom told me that she and Tommy slept in one room and you and Grandma slept in another." "You knew my secret." "Yes, I knew, but a secret is a secret. Of course, there are no wolves. But promise me not to tell Mom that we talked about your secret." Lisette allowed her dragon mother to threaten my boy. She had to pay for it. My next step was to call Nicholas to tell him about my problems and to cancel my appointment. I then spoke to Lottie and my friend Dan, who agreed to help me. Having sex with a married woman in her marital bed is usually an additional incentive for the woman hunter, giving him a feeling of superiority over his deceived husband. I expected that Tommy would not be able to resist the temptation of such pleasure when I was on vacation, So I installed an expensive small wireless television camera in our bedroom with a receiver connected to a VCR with a very long tape hidden in the garage. The camera was connected to a motion sensor and could work even in almost complete darkness. I tested it several times with good results, so it was ready. In my Nissan King Cab from my drilling company, I kept new locks for the house and cardboard boxes for packing Lysette's belongings when the time came to move her out of my house. After 2 painful days at home, during which Lysette now pretended to be a caring wife, I packed clothes for myself and our boy for a week's vacation, and on Saturday morning we left as planned. Lysette told me that she was very sorry that she had to stay home and work this week, and that she would miss us very much. I avoided a kiss goodbye, but promised to call her at least once a day. She even stood in the driveway and waved to us as we drove away. I felt sorry because the woman I loved so much had turned into such a lying cheater. But instead of going to Nicholas's summer house, I went to Lottie's garage, where I hid my car. Nicholas and his wife were aware of my problems and agreed to pretend that I was with them, but left for a moment if Lysette called. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Lottie drove past my house, but did not notice anything unusual. She made another round at 8 o'clock, and when she returned, she told me that this time she saw a silver metallic Volvo XC90 in my yard. People usually visit friends and relatives in the summer, so none of the neighbors would notice someone else's car in someone's driveway at this time of year. I went in Lottie's car at 11, and the Volvo was still there. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I rode there on Lottie's bike, crept into my garage, and turned on the monitor. Bingo, exactly what I wanted to see. Now that I knew I had all the evidence I needed to get a divorce on my terms, I started to feel a little better about this crazy situation. Lysette was not stupid, far from it. So I was a little surprised at how clumsily she handled her infidelity. It was as if she wanted to be caught and made it easier for me to catch her. First by taking Tommy on vacation, and then by allowing his evil mother to threaten our son with wolves. Who knows, maybe she wanted to get kicked out so Tommy would have to take care of her. They had a conversation in which he said, "I will miss you so much that every weekend without you will be a terrible pain. Even when my wife is home, why don't we meet at least once a month in the future?" She now sounded a little annoyed and was obviously starting to feel remorse as she replied, "No, Tommy, when you leave after breakfast, our wonderful love story will be history and I will turn into a good, loyal, loving wife who does everything I have." With everything in mind to win back the love of her husband. But why think about it now? I'm still yours until that time comes. Be a good boy and don't waste another minute of our good time. I pressed a button on my smartphone. My friend Dan woke up after a few beeps, and I told him, "I have bingo. Are you ready for action?" He promised to be here within 15 minutes. I myself would have been quite strong enough to deal with Tommy in my bed, but the main reason I wanted my friend to be present was so that he could testify that I had not used violence against either Tommy or Lysette. If I had gone there alone, I'm sure her mother would have found some lawyer to make up a nasty story and sue me for rudeness. Another good reason was that Dan had a very nice video camera and loved using it. He often photographed weddings, and I wanted close-ups that I couldn't get from my camera. Dan arrived as promised. We gave a short briefing on how to proceed, and then we quietly entered my house. The master bedroom door was closed. I opened it a few centimeters to make sure they were both sleeping under the covers, very close to each other. As Dan prepared his video equipment, he nodded and I said, "Let's go." I opened the door. Dan turned on the bright, rechargeable halogen light and began shooting. I walked over to the bed, removed the blanket without waking them, and gave Dan at least 5 seconds to record before yelling, "What the hell is going on here?" They woke up in complete bewilderment. It took them a few seconds to realize what was happening and to get used to the harsh light. Then Lysette recognized me and started screaming, "No, no, no." I took the camera and told Dan to take Tommy out of my house without giving him a chance to get dressed. Dan took Tommy out. Dan returned after a while, looking for Tommy's keys. He found them in his pants, went out and threw them in the driveway. Then we heard him drive away, naked. Meanwhile, Lisette stopped screaming and began to cry. I think she realized her game was up because she didn't make any stupid attempts to explain anything. I told her, "You ended our marriage. Get dressed and leave my house. You don't have a car anymore, so Dan will call you a taxi. New locks on the doors will be installed tomorrow. I'll pack your things in cardboard boxes and you can pick them up tomorrow afternoon." She started screaming at me. "You can't do this. You have no right to do such nasty things to your wife. I will never accept this." "I don't care what you accept or not. Please read our prenuptial agreement. You have a copy in your personal safe deposit box. You're flying out of this house. Please don't do this to me. Please calm down and let's talk." "Of course, we can talk tomorrow. Be here tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to pick up your things and divide everything we have together. Come alone. Remember that your parents are forbidden to set their dirty feet on my territory." The taxi arrived, and she had to wait 10 minutes before she was ready to leave. Dan went home to bed, and I called Lottie and told her that I had found Lisette and a man named Tommy naked in the marriage bed, which meant the end of our marriage. But I wanted to stay in the house until I could change the locks. I already had new locks stored in my king cab. I won the battle again, but I could only feel sadness over the broken marriage and how it all ended. I couldn't sleep, so I went to the garage, took the videotape, put it in the VCR, rewound it, and pressed play. The recording was of Lisette, dressed to kill in a black top, short black skirt, her hair well styled, laughing and leading Tommy into our bedroom. She was sexier than I had seen her in years, and it was obvious that this was a great night for her. In the bedroom, she couldn't help but brag about how much we paid for our new marriage bed and told him to be careful not to get it dirty. She said, "I hope it was worth the wait, because like I told you before, I promised you I would only do this once and then never again." I was still too excited to sleep, so I started removing Lisette's clothes from the closets and drawers and folding them in the living room. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Lottie and the children arrived at my house with breakfast in a basket. When I checked Tommy's wallet, I found his wife's phone number in Kosovo, called her and told her that I found Tommy and my wife naked in my bed and videotaped it. She got really angry but asked me to email her the photos, which I did after I edited a copy of the video to show Lisette if she had any objections to my terms. I changed the locks, carefully packed Lisette's things, and labeled the contents of each box. I didn't want to take revenge by damaging or destroying anything of hers. I then took my chainsaw and sawed our almost new and very expensive marriage bed into small pieces, which I then threw out in the driveway. Lottie and the kids even brought me lunch, which allowed me to take a break from work. Then, at 4 o'clock, a pale Lisette arrived alone in the printer's old Ford Transit. She looked at the pile that was our dear bed for a long time before she entered. I had coffee ready in the living room and asked her to sit down. She agreed, sat down and began to sob, giving me a long litany about how she still loved me, and how she regretted her terrible mistake, and how she would never do it again, if only I could forgive her. She promised to work less at the printing plant, spend all weekends with her family, never go to parties or dinners at her mother's without me, and wanted us to have another child. I told her, 3 weeks ago, you could have saved our marriage with those promises. But today, after everything you've done since then, it's too late. I'm sorry, Lisette, but we no longer have a future together. She began her litany again. I let her talk, and when she finished, I asked, "You must think I'm a complete idiot if you thought I'd believe your lies about Tommy, a 30-year-old woman hunter who spends his weekends in the company of a disgusting old woman like yours." Mother, even if I was thinking with my ass and not my head, I should have realized that there was a much younger and more beautiful woman out there who wanted to be seduced by him. She didn't answer, so I continued, "You're a very attractive woman, Lisette, so I can't blame him. But I blame you for being such a cheap woman that you let him end our marriage and make our child very unhappy. Why, Lysette, why? Was I such a bad husband that you had to cheat with that bastard? You were not my first or best choice, but I married you when you needed me, and even fell in love with you. Lysette, I have been a faithful husband to you until this moment. She sobbed. It's not your fault. I never stopped loving you. You're my one true love. But I know you've slept with many other women, and I've had no experience with other men except you. I'm sorry that I couldn't resist the temptation to do it with at least one other man, and I can promise you that I won't do it again. I replied, now that you got what you wanted, I hope you're happy. At least your mother is probably very happy. She got what she wanted all along. Please tell her that I don't care. What did you do because your cheating gave me the freedom to marry the woman who truly loved me? You didn't realize that you ended our marriage that Friday before the summer solstice when I begged you to spend the weekend with your family, but you chose to leave and sleep with Tommy at your mother's. Did you really think that I would accept this, being deceived by my husband? The only reason I didn't throw you out of the house right away was because I wanted proof of your cheating so I could get rid of you, without paying you anything. Remember, I even offered you a divorce on fair terms, but to my surprise, you refused. An intelligent woman like you should have realized that I would never accept being a poor, deceived husband for a cheating wife. I didn't want a divorce then, and I don't want it now because I love you. Of course, I understood that the child told you something about Tommy and you suspected something. But I never thought that you would have evidence. I regretted the affair and promised myself that Tommy would be my first and last betrayal, but I decided to complete it, as Tommy and I had planned. The night with him in our house was supposed to be the grand finale, the last betrayal. I'm glad it's over, and I can't deny that your behavior after that Friday made me worry about the problems I created in our marriage. I started to fear the worst when you treated me like air and refused to have sex with me. So I wanted to be a good wife again and do everything possible to win back your love, and really pamper you during our week at the summer house and try to get pregnant as soon as possible. I was even looking for a new job. I'm afraid it's too late now. I replied, you're right. Friday before midsummer was your last chance. You didn't care about me then, and now, after what happened last night, there is only one possible solution to our problems. I handed her the divorce papers and said, please sign them so we can do this the easy way. What do you mean? No matter what you choose, the easy way or the hard way, everything will be according to the terms of our prenuptial agreement. You have a copy in your personal safe deposit box. You get everything that's yours, and I take what's mine, which means almost everything except your clothes. I want custody of our son, but you can see him often when you have your own place. But I will not allow you to take him to your mother's house or her dacha. She did not object to this because her relationship with her mother had deteriorated and she had quit her job at the printing house. Her mother went ballistic when Lysette demanded her salary, refused to pay her anything, and completely lost her temper when Lysette sued her. Lysette won the case, and the bailiffs managed to receive her money 2 weeks before the printing house went bankrupt. The bank objected, but Nicholas provided her with a good lawyer, who convinced the bank to withdraw its claims. Tommy's visit to my house to celebrate his romance with Lysette lasted only a short, intense, and initially pleasant time, which soon turned into a terrible nightmare for him. After I found him in my bed, and he drove away naked from my house in his Volvo, he was stopped by the traffic police who were checking drivers for alcohol on the way home from parties. Lysette and he celebrated the end of their love story with a nice dinner with my best Rioja wine and cognac. He was detained, naked, at the police station for a blood sample to be taken. One of Lysette's friends later told me that he had heard rumors that he had received heavy fines and lost his driver's license for 2 years. His wife did what she promised. She returned home, left him, and filed for divorce. She now works in Geneva, Switzerland, for the UN, where she lives with an Italian colleague whom she met while working in Kosovo. Tommy tried to solve his personal problems with the help of Dr. Alcohol, which forced him to take time out from work. Good sex doesn't always lead to luck. He never saw Lysette again and refused to take her numerous calls during her desperate attempts to talk to him. Before getting into her pants, he promised to take care of her if she had problems in her marriage. Now she learned the cruel truth. All his words were just empty chatter, and she was naive, believing everything he said. The extra money from the printing house gave her the opportunity to buy an apartment in a good area, and she had no problems finding a new job. Although we work well together on child-related issues, we never discuss personal topics. Lysette is a very attractive woman, and now that she is free from her mother's influence, it is not clear why she has not started dating yet. Lottie and I got married right after my divorce was finalized. We sold both of our old houses and bought one together. She's pregnant now, and I think these days we're a pretty typical family of our times with 3 kids, each with different parents. We don't care because we are a happy family. The birthday card was Dan's idea. I accepted it, and he asked his mother to buy a beautiful card, on which she wrote in neat handwriting, "Dear friends, I must congratulate you on your victory in the bet. You've done what every parent dreams of, convincing your only daughter to leave her good, loving husband to become the mistress of a married cheater. She should be very grateful to you for the rest of her life. Your faithful friend." I sent it to Lysette's father, who, according to rumors around town, objected to Tommy coming to their house every weekend to seduce Lysette, but his wife convinced him otherwise. He felt both sadness and anger while Lysette cried for hours after I kicked her out. The card was the last straw, and he finally realized that if he had acted like a man, he could have stopped his wife's madness. He regretted that he had been such a coward and had become a laughing stock among his friends. After a few drinks, he found the strength to express his humble opinion to his wife. Their argument ended in a fight that sent her to hospital for a week and him to the police station for the night. The day before she left the hospital, he packed his bags and left home. Since they had no minor children, their divorce was finalized within 3 months.